Welcome everyone to the second prophecy video within the series on the Winged Tourney. In this prophecy series, we'll be looking at Littlefinger's plans for the tourney, Littlefinger's plans for Elaine during the tourney, and how everything will fall apart. In the previous video, I created this graph with you all. For the sake of this video and all future videos, I've changed it a bit, and I'm probably going to continue changing this going forward. If I find that I finally have a final design, then I'll create another video discussing it, because this graph is really important. It shows all the diplomatic options, and Littlefinger is definitely the type of person who would know all this stuff and create plans based on all these options and these types of lists. So, how many of these can Littlefinger use? Well, all of them, of course. The better question is, how many of these will Littlefinger use? Well, probably all of them, each in their own way, shape, and form. But today, we'll be focusing our attention on one of these, the one which will probably be the most important within the upcoming Winged Tourney. That is, of course, holding hostages. Now, who does Littlefinger currently hold as a hostage? Realistically, no one. Currently, everyone resides at the gates of the moon. As a reminder, winter was coming, so they had to travel down from the Eyrie to the gates of the moon. The gates of the moon is the castle below the Eyrie, and it is controlled by Nestor Royce. This means that any hostages Littlefinger might take would actually be Nestor Royce's. But Nestor Royce is loyal to Littlefinger for now, and even though this is an extremely important detail we'll come back to, we are going to ignore this in this video and most of the upcoming videos. If we do not consider Nestor Royce, who does Littlefinger currently hold as a hostage? Well, a lot of people, but most importantly, Sansa Stark and Robert Arryn. For reasons we'll discuss in a future video, Littlefinger definitely won't reveal Sansa's identity because that's just dumb. This means that Sansa Stark, as Elaine Stone, is a valueless hostage. That only leaves Sweet Robin, aka Robert Arryn, Lord of the Eyrie, Defender of the Vale, and Warden of the East. He is undeniably the most powerful hostage because his presence allowed Littlefinger to control the entirety of the Vale. But Littlefinger is a greedy man. He wants more hostages. How can he do that? Well, no one is going to hand him hostages, obviously, so he needs to either steal them or convince the hostages themselves to become his hostage. Now, the former is a bad idea. If he were to steal hostages, everyone would get really mad at him, and he probably wouldn't rule for long. And the latter, well, we'll get back to. Because handing over hostages seems like a terrible idea, and yet it could actually have been possible, even within this storyline. Because there was actually one situation in which Littlefinger could have been handed a hostage for free. This was Michael Redforth, who squired for Lyn Corbray. If this squiring would have continued, Lyn Corbray could have handed him as a hostage to Littlefinger, which would mean a free hostage. And yet, Lyn Corbray decided to knight Michael, which released him from his service, and lost Littlefinger a hostage. From what I know currently, there isn't another way for Littlefinger to gain a hostage that easy. So, that leaves the one option, convincing people to become his hostage. Now this seems even dumber. Why would anyone willingly hand themselves over as a hostage? Well, it's a lot more complicated, because people are stupid, especially young ignorant boys, and Littlefinger knows this, and he is going to exploit this. So, how is Littlefinger going to exploit this? Well, that's where the Winged Tourney comes in. Littlefinger knows that if he organizes such a tourney, all the young boys will come to participate. But only them coming to the gates of the moon is not enough. He needs them to stay there. So, as a reward of this tourney, Littlefinger is offering the prize of becoming his hostage. Now, okay, it's a bit more complicated than that, and it's a bit more hidden than that. If you win, then you become one of the 8 winged knights, which will protect Sweet Robin. This means, of course, that you will be living in the Gates of the Moon, which pretty much makes you Littlefinger's hostage, just sugar-coated under a fancy title. But just them coming to the tourney is not the same as them winning the tourney. There is quite a difference actually. And Littlefinger probably has a list of people whom he wants to win. Now, who specifically is on this list is something for the next videos, but for now, let's assume he wants player 1 to win. We know that there are 64 candidates and 8 winners, so voila, an entire chart of the tourney. How can he force the win for player 1? Well, in a regular tourney, the tourney would split into rounds until you have a winner. In every round, the round would start with someone challenging someone else. The winner continues on to the next round, the loser is out of the tourney. Then this happens again and again and again until half of everyone is out and half of everyone is through. Then this same process goes on and on and on until there in the end only 2 people left, and then these people have a final, and then the winner of the final wins the entire tourney. So that's pretty much how a normal, regular Westerosi tournament would work, and in this case, with 64 candidates, that'd be 6 rounds. Now there are some unique rules here. Firstly, if there is an odd number, then the person remaining after everyone else is dueled can go to the next round for free. Secondly, because in this case there are 8 winners, we would actually have 3 rounds before the winners are decided. This would mean that someone could win the entire tourney without ever fighting anyone, if there was the odd one remaining. To fix this, I expect there is another rule which forces the remaining player to start the next round. I believe this was said somewhere, but I couldn't find it for this video. Fourthly, if there is a draw, then no one continues on to the next round and they have to fight someone else, or they could both continue on to the next round, depending on what decision is made. Now, who wins within each fight? In the Winged Tourney, we'll know there will be jousting, so let's look at the Jousting Rules. In Westeros, you win a joust if you dismount someone. This can be done with tourney lances, which break on impact, or with other blunted weapons. Sometimes though, jousts will continue onto the ground until one of the knights is dead. Either way, yielding will always work as a way to surrender. This is shown by holding your lance down instead of up in the lists. If after 3 tilts no one wins, then the one of the 2 will be chosen as a winner or there will be a draw. Now these are not the only rules. In the later medieval period, we see a victory system based on points. This system is designed to reward chivalry and skill and to negate negative consequences of tourneys such as injuries. The goal is to hit your opponent above the waist with your lance. If your lance hits, you get 1 point. If your lance breaks, you get 2 points, and if your lance shatters, you get 3 points. These points can then easily be taken away by penalties for doing stuff that are illegal, such as not presenting a good target, not cantering, not galloping, or throwing the lance away. Stuff like striking a horse or causing an injury would cause an immediate disqualification. Now, even though such a system would be an option for Littlefinger, I don't expect he'll use it. Firstly, such a system is not common within Westeros. We know of people killing others on tourneys, and that's completely fine for some reason, so this probably wouldn't work. It's a cool system that rewards skill, and we'll get back to this more extensively in the next video, but this is not what Littlefinger wants. So overall, no, not gonna happen. But if these later rules are based more on skill, what are the Westerosi rules based on? Well, luck. This is what Barristan Selmy has to say about tourneys. A man will win one tourney and fall quickly in the next. A slick spot in the grass may mean defeat, or what you ate for supper the night before. A change in the wind may bring a gift of victory, or a lady's favor knotted round an arm. This is interesting because it presents several opportunities for Littlefinger: the ground of the list, the food served, the location of the tourney, and the lady's favors. These are of course things that are mostly under his control and the last he can influence. But we'll come back to all this in a later video. For now we're looking at the purely theoretical stuff. Let's talk a bit about luck. Because jousts are inherently luck based. Anyone can win a duel, and this means that even though you can increase or decrease your chances, in the end they'll still chances. You can never be sure you'll win a joust, even if you're better than everyone else. So the only way Littlefinger could ever force a win is by rigging the system. If he can make sure that everyone loses against a certain person, the Littlefinger can force a win. In other words, he can force a hostage. But we'll get back to this later. So now we have our rules and we have our system. These rules are probably not gonna change much. Probably not gonna change at all. So all Littlefinger can realistically change is the system, and he has to change this to cause the chances for player 1 to increase. We already know of one system change that Littlefinger has made. Instead of there being 1 victor, there are 8. This would mean that the chances of player 1 winning increase substantially. But realistically, this would be somewhere around 10-fold to 100-fold to maybe even a factor of 1,000 based on player 1's skill. But even then, this system is not enough to force a win. Any of the 63 other players can joust against player 1. This means that if Littlefinger wants player 1 to win, he needs to make sure that all 63 other players would lose against player 1. This is completely unreasonable, especially if player 1 is bad at jousting, so Littlefinger needs to rig the system so the amount of possible opponents goes down. Let's look at several other systems. The first way Littlefinger can rig the system is with a thing I'm calling uprounding. I believe this was done in the Winged Tourney, but I couldn't find any evidence for this. Now I talked with some people who organize tournaments and even they didn't know what to call this, so I'm just making up things that sound cool. Uprounding isn't some official tournament term and there might be something out there, I don't know, but this is what I'm calling it. So, what is uprounding? Well, uprounding is a thing I think they had in the Winged Tourney which allows you to fight against players in rounds above you. To give an example, say you're player A and you want to fight against player B. You're in round 1 and player B is in round 2. In normal tournaments, this would mean that you wouldn't be able to fight, but with the rules of uprounding, you would be able to fight. Why would you add this? Well, firstly, this adds a lot more strategy to the game. Do you fight early, giving you the choice of whom you fight, allowing you to gain more honor, respect, and have a higher chance of promoting, but with the risk to fight more than once for each round? Or do you fight late, giving you less choice of whom you fight, but with less risk of fighting more than once? Secondly, it's a way to filter away unskilled players. There will always be people wanting to win, and those will try to fight with the best odds. This will mean that unskilled players will be chosen a lot and slowly filtered out of the game. Thirdly, it's a way to increase the length of the tourney. For a lot of lords, tourneys mean money, and increasing the lengths with such a measure can be a way to earn more cash. And fourthly, it's a way to make sure that there are no odd players remaining, so no one can complain that certain people up-jumped their way to victory. But from the perspective of Littlefinger wanting to rig the game, this is a terrible rule. It increases the total amount of fights, which causes the chances for player 1 to win to go down, and it makes the game a lot more skill based. In other words, less riggable. For uprounding to be worth it, you need to have a skilled player which you're supporting. But even then, it depends on the win reward. Because what I've assumed till now is that if player A wins, he moves up 1 round, and if player B wins, he remains on the same spot. But this can be changed. For example, you can say that player B can move up a spot after victory. Or something that would help Littlefinger, if you challenge someone with an uprounding, you can move to their spot. Say, for example, if player B was in round 4, then player A can challenge him and move all the way up if he wins. This would allow you to minimize the total amount of fights for certain skilled players, increasing their chances to win. So this is a standard Westerosi tournament for one winner, a quote-unquote free ladder with an up-rounding rule. From the perspective of fairness and equality, this works good enough. The free ladder is mostly luck-based, allowing some people to move forward with really easy fights and some with really hard ones. But the up-rounding rules causes weak players to fall off easier, and in the end you still need to fight some hard fights. That is not the case though in a tournament with 8 winners. With only the free ladder, people would be able to move into the winning spots by only challenging weak players and get there undeserved. The up-rounding rule causes this to be a lot harder because people below you can still challenge you for your spot. In other words, it works okay for 8 winners, but you still don't get the 8 best jousters in the end as your victors. Probably. Now don't get me wrong, Littlefinger does not want the 8 best jousters to win, but it is important to realize that Westeros does have 2 complete systems designed for having several winners, both teams and challenges. I won't get into details here, but teams is pretty much just a normal Westerosi system, but with teams, and challenges is a system where you have a starting group of champions, and then anyone can challenge any of the champions. If they win, they take the spot of the champion, continuing until there isn't any opposition left. Both of these systems work to get strong victors, but Littlefinger's goal here isn't to get strong victors. No, he wants to pick the winners. Now to do this, Littlefinger needs to minimize 2 things: freedom and the amount of fights. Freedom means that random people can fight against Littlefinger's player, but if Littlefinger can minimize the freedom and make sure that player 1 only fights against Littlefinger's lackey, so player 1 always wins. But because there is an inherent amount of luck with each fight, player 1 can also lose even though his opponent is intentionally throwing. This means that Littlefinger also has to minimize the amount of luck, which means that they'll always have the minimized amount of fights. The more fights, the more chances player 1 has to lose. The best system to do this, of course, is nothing. You don't have a tournament at all, but instead you give away the prize to player 1. This works, right? Well, no, not at all. You need to give the illusion of fairness, because you can include systems like playing games and just giving away prizes for free, but people will scream it's not fair, because it's not. You're intentionally rigging the system against them, or for them. But there is one system that at least has an illusion of fairness. That system is perfect for 64 players, and that system is, of course, a single-elimination bracket. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me explain. Single elimination means that if you lose, you're out. And a bracket is the standard tournament system in which you fight against a set person to progress to the next round. Because no one can choose who they fight, the freedom is absolutely 0, and Littlefinger can pretty much choose the victor. And because there's 8 victors, the entire bracket can pretty much be divided into 8 separate brackets for dividing the victors. This means that Littlefinger can narrow the possible opponents down from 63 to 7. Or possibly even 3, which is really helpful. And after all that, you only need 3 fights to decide the victor. It's just perfect. Now, are there better systems out there? Yes. And does this have some problems? Again, yes. But do I expect that this will be the actual system used in the Winged Tourney? Very much yes. Not only does it fit nicely, and it would allow Littlefinger to easily gain people like Harold Hardane as a hostage, but it also fits perfectly with the 64 invited knights. 8 multiplied by 8 is 64 after all. And it also has the perfect capacity for things to go wrong. And it's also perfect for people to understand what's going on in the story. Everyone knows how such a tournament works and would understand Littlefinger's plan and any plans to counter it and everything that goes wrong. It's just the perfect system because everyone knows inherently how a single elimination bracket works, even if they don't know what it means. And it's also perfect for the characters within the story because it's really easy for them to understand what is going on and who will fight against who. So that is what I expect will happen. We'll have a single elimination bracket with the standard Westerosi Jousting Rules. Perfect, right? Well, as I said, this does have some problems and a lot of things are still unclear. That is what we'll answer in the upcoming videos. How will the tourney be held from a theoretical perspective, then who will be placed where in the brackets, and then lastly, how will the tourney be held from a practical perspective. But most importantly of all, what will go wrong? And that and more in the rest of this prophecy videos on the Winged Tourney. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If you have other ideas of systems which you might believe would work better for this specific occasion, leave your ideas in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like. If you didn't enjoy the video, feel free to leave a dislike. If you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day.